What does it mean to take care of someone you love? It means you give them your time, your energy, and your heart. It means you are there for them on the good days and on the very, very bad days. It is a quiet and often invisible job. You do it for love, not for thanks. But what happens when that love is not returned? What happens when all your sacrifice is seen as nothing? This is a story about the invisible work of love, and the day the truth was finally spoken out loud. I would like to ask you, have you ever cared for someone who was sick? Please share your story in the comments. My name is Sarah, and this is the story of my husband, Mark. Mark and I had a happy life. We were married for 5 years. We had a small, comfortable home and a life full of simple joys. He was a strong, active man. He loved to run, to hike, to be outdoors. I loved his energy, his passion for life. I thought our happy, easy life would last forever. But one day, everything changed. Mark got sick. It was not a simple cold or flu. It was a serious, long-term illness that changed his body and his spirit. Suddenly, our life was a world of doctors and hospitals and medicine. After a long stay in the hospital, he came home. But he was not the same man. He was weak. He was in pain all the time. He could not work anymore. He could not even do simple things for himself. And so, I became his nurse. I became his caregiver. My life changed completely. I had to leave my job so I could be home with him. My world became very small. My whole day, every day, was about Mark. I would wake up early to give him his first dose of medicine. I would cook his special meals. I would help him wash and get dressed. I would drive him to his many doctor's appointments. I would stay up all night with him when the pain was too bad for him to sleep. It was hard, exhausting work. But I did it because I loved him. I was his wife. It was my promise to him, in sickness and in health. At first, he was so grateful. He would hold my hand and say, "Thank you, Sarah. I don't know what I would do without you." But as the months passed, the sickness started to change him. It made him bitter and angry. He was frustrated with his weak body. He was angry at the world, and he started to take that anger out on me. The thank yous stopped. In their place, there was criticism. "This soup is too salty," he would say. "You forgot my 2 o'clock medicine. It's 2:15, he would complain. "Why is the house so messy?" he would ask, not seeing that I had been busy helping him all day. Nothing I did was ever good enough. He took my constant, tireless care for granted. It was just my job. I was so tired, and I was so lonely. I would cry in the bathroom so he would not see me. I told myself it was not him. It was the illness talking. My kind, loving Mark was still in there, somewhere. One afternoon, he was in a lot of pain. It was a new, sharp pain, and I was scared. I called the doctor, and he told me to bring him to the hospital immediately. The emergency room was a busy, stressful place. We waited for hours. Finally, a kind-looking doctor came to see us. She started to ask Mark questions. "What medicines are you taking? What time did you take your last dose? What did you eat today?" Mark was angry and in pain. He could not remember the details. He waved his hand at me, his face full of frustration. "I don't know," he said to the doctor. "Ask her. She is supposed to manage all of that, but she is useless. She probably gave me the wrong pill." He said it so loudly. In front of the doctor, in front of the other nurses. Useless. After all the sleepless nights, all the meals, all the care, all the love. I was useless. I just stood there, my heart broken into a million pieces. The doctor looked at Mark. Then she looked at me, at my tired, pale, and heartbroken face, and she did not say anything for a long, long moment. I just stood there, frozen. The word useless was a loud, ugly echo in my head. I felt the eyes of the other nurses on me. My face was hot with shame. I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me. My husband, the man I had given my entire life to, had just called me useless in front of everyone. It was the cruelest word he could have chosen. The doctor was silent for a moment. She looked at Mark, who was lying in the bed, his face angry and in pain. Then she turned her cool, intelligent eyes to me. She did not look at me with pity. She looked at me with a calm, professional focus. Her voice, when she spoke, was not for Mark. It was for me, and it was so gentle. "Can you tell me, please?" she said, speaking to me directly. "What medications has he had today, and at what times?" Her question broke me out of my shock. I took a deep breath. This was my world. This was the work I did every single day. "Yes," I said, my voice a little shaky but clear. "He had his heart medication at 8 a.m. and his pain medication at 12:30 p.m. The pain medication is a new one, so the dose is low." I continued. I told her the name of every pill, the exact dose, and the exact time. I told her what he had eaten for breakfast and lunch. I told her all his symptoms from the past 24 hours. I knew his body and his illness better than I knew myself. When I was finished, the doctor nodded slowly. She made some notes on her chart. Then, she turned to face my husband, and her gentle voice was gone. In its place was a voice that was firm and cold and full of authority. "Mr. Miller," she said, and Mark looked at her, surprised. "I want you to understand something. Your wife has just provided me with a perfect, detailed, and completely accurate medical report. It is more precise than the reports I get from most of our own nurses." She was not finished. She looked at me, and then back at him. "Let me tell you what I see when I look at your wife," she said, her voice sharp. "I see a woman who is under extreme stress. I see a woman who has not had a good night's sleep in a very long time. I see a caregiver who is doing the difficult, exhausting, and unpaid job of keeping her husband alive and as comfortable as possible. The work she is doing is not useless. It is a full-time medical job, and she is doing it by herself." Mark's face was red with shame. He could not speak. He just stared at the doctor. "Your illness is hard, Mr. Miller," the doctor said, her voice a little softer now, but still firm. "But it does not give you the right to be cruel to the person who is fighting this battle with you. Your wife is your partner, not your servant. You are a team, and if you want to get better, you need to remember that." After she spoke, she became a doctor again. She examined Mark and figured out the problem. But the real medicine in that room was the truth she had spoken. For the first time in so long, someone had seen my invisible work. Someone had seen my sacrifice. Someone had stood up for me. As the doctor was finishing, I felt tears running down my face. But they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of a deep and powerful relief. The car ride home from the hospital was silent. But it was not an angry silence. It was a heavy silence, full of the things that had been said. I helped Mark get into bed. He was quiet. He did not complain. He did not criticize me. As I was about to leave the room, he said my name. His voice was a small, broken whisper. "Sarah." I turned. He was looking at me, and the anger and bitterness were gone from his eyes. All I saw was a deep and terrible shame. "I am so sorry," he said. And I knew that this time, he really meant it. The apology that night was a beginning, but it was not a magic fix. The days after the hospital visit were quiet and full of a new, awkward tension. The anger and criticism from Mark were gone, but in their place was a heavy cloud of his shame, and my own quiet, careful waiting. He was trying to be different. He would say please and thank you. He would try to do small things for himself. But we were like two strangers, trying to learn a new dance, and we kept stepping on each other's feet. The bitterness was gone, but the easy warmth of our old life was still a distant memory. I knew that we could not continue to live in this sad, quiet space. The doctor's words had given me back my strength, and now I had to use it to help rebuild our life, or to decide if it could be rebuilt at all. A few days after the hospital visit, I went to him. He was sitting in the living room, just staring out the window, looking so lost. I sat down next to him. "Mark," I said, my voice gentle but firm. "We need to talk, really talk." He turned to me, his eyes full of a deep sadness. He looked so vulnerable. "I know," he said. "Sarah, I have been a monster. There is no excuse for how I treated you. I was so angry about being sick, about being weak. I hated this new version of myself, and I took it all out on you. You were the only person here, so you were my target. It was so wrong. You have been an angel, and I have been a devil. I am so, so sorry." His honest words opened the door. For the first time in a year, we had a real conversation. I was honest, too. I told him how lonely I had been. I told him how his words had broken my heart, day after day. "I felt like you did not see me anymore," I said, tears in my eyes. "I felt like I was just a part of your illness. I missed my husband. I missed my best friend." We talked for hours. We cried. We let all the secret, painful feelings out into the open. And in that long, difficult conversation, we decided to become a team again. Not the old team, where he was the strong one and I was his partner. A new kind of team. He said he did not want to be just a patient anymore. He wanted to be a partner again, in any way he could. We made a new plan for our new life. I created a big, clear chart for his medications, and it became his job to manage it. It gave him a sense of control over his own body. And he found things he could do for me. He could not cook or clean, but he could sit at the kitchen table and talk to me while I cooked. He could order the groceries online, and he could do the most important thing. He could listen. He started to ask me about my day. He would ask me how I was feeling. And he would really, truly listen to the answer. We also found a support group, an online group for couples who were dealing with long-term illness. We were not alone. There were other people who understood our fight. Our life was still hard. He was still sick. There were still bad days. But now, we were facing them together. The house was not a sad, lonely hospital anymore. It was our home again. One evening, I was in the kitchen, feeling very tired. Mark was at the table, organizing his pills for the next day. He looked up at me. He had a small, gentle smile on his face. "You look tired," he said. "Come, sit down for a minute. Let me make you a cup of tea." I knew it was a small thing. I knew I would probably have to help him. But his words, his offer to take care of me, were the most beautiful words I had ever heard. That small offer of a cup of tea was the beginning of our new life. It was not a magical cure. Mark was still sick. Our life was still hard. But we were not fighting each other anymore. We were fighting the illness. Together. We learned how to be a new kind of team. He learned to ask for help, not with anger, but with trust. And I learned to accept his help, no matter how small. Our days were still a long schedule of medications and rest. But now, we did it together. We found new, quiet ways to be a couple. We could not go for long walks anymore, but we could sit on our small porch and watch the sunset. We could not go to loud, busy restaurants, but we could cook simple meals together at home. We started to read books out loud to each other. We found a new, quieter kind of happiness. A happiness that was built not on a perfect life, but on a perfect partnership. With Mark's encouragement, I started to find a little piece of my own life again. I started a small garden in our backyard. It was my quiet, happy place. I would spend an hour there every day, with my hands in the dirt, feeling the sun on my face. It was my time. And Mark understood. He saw that for our team to be strong, Both players needed to be happy and healthy. The exhausted, invisible caregiver was gone, and in her place was a wife, a partner, and a person again. About a year after that terrible day in the hospital, we went back for a regular checkup with the same doctor. But this time, everything was different. We walked into her office together, holding hands. When the doctor asked Mark questions about his health, he answered them himself, clearly and confidently. I was there by his side to help if he forgot a small detail, but he was in control of his own story. The doctor looked at us. She looked at our joined hands. She saw the new easy smile on my face. She saw the new quiet peace in Mark's eyes. She smiled a real, warm, happy smile. "Look at you two," she said, her voice full of a genuine warmth. "You are doing such a wonderful job. You are my favorite team." As we walked out of the hospital that day, out into the sunshine, I held my husband's hand. The man walking beside me was not the strong, active man I had married, and he was not the bitter, angry man he had become. He was someone new. He was a quiet, strong man who was living with a difficult illness, with dignity, with courage, and with love. The illness was a terrible storm that had almost destroyed us, but we had survived it. And we had found something new in the wreckage. Our love was not the easy, sunny love of our first 5 years. It was a different love now. A stronger love. A deeper love. A love that had been tested by the fire and had come out real and true and unbreakable. If this story about love and healing was meaningful to you, please give this video a like. What do you think is the most important part of being a team in a relationship? Share your thoughts below. For more emotional English stories that show the true strength of love, please be sure to follow our channel.